Hello and welcome to Tracy Mommy Reads. I am back again with another video. This video will be my last regularly scheduled video for 2023. My goodness, I cannot believe that we are already back in December and approaching Christmas and the end of the year. This is wild. This year, I have seen, I think, the most growth on my channel than I have since I started. I think this was my second or third full year. Yeah, I think this was my third full year. But I had a goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers. I fell a little short of that, but I appreciate all 850 odd something of you that have subscribed. Thank you so very much. And if you are watching this right now, you should go ahead and subscribe, because I'm going to have some, cool and new and hopefully interesting things on the channel for next year, and you don't want to miss out. So today on this video, I'm going to do what I have done for the last 2 years, and that is I'm going to share my top reads of 2023. Well, this year, so that which is 2023, and I was looking. I think I mentioned this in my previous video, and I have read more books on my Kindle this year. I have a Kindle Fire, and I've read more books on my Kindle than actual physical books and, actual books. I have come across so many amazing short stories and novellas. I think that I'm going to compile a list, and put that on my website somewhere, because while I think I did a couple of them on the channel this year, but sometimes it's kind of hard to do a full-length video talking about a short story. The story's on like 40 or 50 pages. It's like, I guess you could talk about it, but the video will be very short. But anyway, there were a whole lot of stories, and there were even some full-length books that I read on the Kindle, but there were a lot of the stories that because I told y'all earlier in the year, like over the summer, I was like in a chokehold with a lot of the mafia romance type books. And I think I've only talked about 2 of them maybe on my channel, but I finished a couple of series, where they had, let's say it was a family, and when one story was about one sister, maybe in the next story was about her brother. They weren't like cliffhangers or anything like that, but they weren't books that I wanted to really, they were like kind of guilty pleasures. I mean, I enjoyed them because otherwise I wouldn't have read them, but they weren't something that I necessarily wanted to bring to the channel and discuss at length. And then there were some books that I read that unfortunately I just did not like them. Some of them I did not finish, and some of them I finished because I just kept holding out hope, because it would be like, oh, this starts off really good. Okay, this is not so good. Okay, well, maybe, then no. It was like this whole thing like that. And then in the end, it was kind of like I did want to slap myself for wasting my time. But, it's like I think you have to continue to do things like reading stories to see, what you like and what you don't like. And also as a writer, I, feel compelled to just read books to see how authors are crafting stories so that I can either be inspired or know what not to do. As a reader, if I'm looking at this going, okay, that was a bad choice, then it's going to help me as a writer, because it's like, well, there's probably readers out there that are going to feel like I did, and maybe let's find a way to elevate this, So I think that's why I have such a problem with a lot of the endings of books, because in my mind, I'm feeling I'm more creative, that I would have done X, Y, Z with that ending, But anyway, we're not here to talk about that or listen to me ramble. We are going to be discussing my top 5 reads of 2023. And then on the back end, I'll just give you guys just like a glimpse, of what I'll be doing, for 2024. We'll talk about some things I have on the horizon. Okay, so we're going to start with 5 going down to number 1. So number 5, The Maids Diary. I really enjoyed The Maids Diary. I found that book when I was in a reading slump. And, avid readers know what I mean, where you go from just devouring stories and books and, reading so much. And then all of a sudden, you pick up books and that doesn't sound interesting. You look at the blurb, nothing just really, even though they're books that you were interested in at the time that you bought them, and you will eventually get to them, but you're just in a mindset or a mood where you're just like, I don't want to read that, don't want to read that. And this was all a Kindle read, and I think it may have been like a Prime Reads thing where they give you the books for free or something like that. And just immediately from page one, I was drawn in. The Maids Diary, it is about a woman who works for a cleaning service, so I guess she technically would be called a maid. She had something pretty, tragic happen to her in her younger days, like when she was in high school. And she kind of ran away from that, started a new life and just wanted to kind of be low-key, and found this job in a neighborhood with all these wealthy people, where she just, worked by herself, cleaning their homes, got her pay, went home, and, didn't really have to think about what had happened to her or anything like that. And then she ends up cleaning a house where I don't know if she took somebody's place or if it was just a new house that was added, but the house belongs to someone who had a hand in what happened to her back in high school. So it's like she is totally brought face to face with her past trauma. She is totally triggered, and she realizes that until she can get closure on that issue, it's going to haunt her forever. And Kit's, that's her name is Kit. Her, what she decides the best way to get closure is to get revenge. And then you're taken just on this whirlwind story of how things were so carefully crafted. And I guess the twist at the end, and this is a spoiler, but I guess the twist at the end is when you realize all these things that were happening throughout the story was Kit getting revenge, right? And how masterful she had done that. And so that was, I really liked the way that story by Loretta Ann White was crafted, and how she kept you, engaged with every page and kept you guessing to the end. And, you thought you knew and you didn't know. And one of the things that I think is that I'm starting to become more accepting of is just that suspension of belief. Was it possible that this person could have done all this in this show? Probably not, but this is a book. And in books, we're going to get, people are going to get what they deserve, right? So that in itself made me, really excited about the book, and made it one of the top reads for me for 2023. Number 4, The Invisible Life of Addy Laro. This book, I really, really enjoyed this book because I'd read other books. I think they were last year, and I think 2 or 3 of them ended up being on my, recap from last year. But I love books that kind of deal with time travel or, sci-fi, but not in the Star Wars, Star Trek type sci-fi. This book, focused on a woman who had made a wish to, the universe or the powers that be, or whoever was listening and watching at the time. She wanted to basically become someone else. She wanted to live a different life. And I can't remember the exact words she used, but her wish was granted. And what ends up happening is that she doesn't age and she has lived I want to say hundreds of years, right? And the thing that I thought was really cool is how the author took us on those journeys of the changing world, changing society from the French Revolution through present day. Addy had seen and done so much and been around for so many historical moments in the history of the world. And the thing about, the title kind of alludes to the fact, one of the caveats to her getting her wish granted is that nobody would remember her after she was gone. As far as, if she comes in the room and she and I are having a conversation, if she leaves out the room, my mind is wiped. I don't even remember what she looked like, who she was, and she can't even say her own name. So it's like she's living, but not really, because I guess it's almost like, let's say if someone is homeless and they don't have a residence, they can't get a job because you got to put where you live on there. So she had to become very crafty in how she, survived, because she didn't have anything to verify her identity, right? And it's just the biggest, I guess, the thing to me about this story that I found kind of intriguing, yet I don't know if I found it annoying or endearing. I kept being on the fence about it, that she ended up with this relationship with this being or entity that had granted her wish, like he essentially fell for her, right? But yeah, just the way that the story was told. And I love when authors inject real life events and people into their stories to make it appear their characters cross paths with them. And it was a lot of that in this book, a lot of historical references, a lot of pop culture references. And I just thought it was a very, very well done story. That was also one of those stories where I wasn't so sure about the ending, but it was all wrapped up nice and tidy enough that it was a satisfying ending. Would I have liked for it to go in a different way? Maybe, but we don't always get what we want, but we get what we need most of the time. So yeah, The Invisible Life of Addy Laro by V.E. Schwab. Okay, the next book, number 3, Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. I started reading this one I picked it up at the end of 2022, but didn't start reading it until the beginning of 2023. And, absolutely loved it. Initially, it was a challenge because there's this back and forth, like from the present. A woman by the name of Eleanor Bennett has passed away, and she's left these recordings for her 2 children, Benny and Byron, right? Her son and daughter, so brother, sister. And she is confessing a bunch of stuff that, she hadn't told them when she was living, including her real name wasn't Eleanor, okay? So we get backstories, and the way that in the book, the way that it was told, like when you get to that second chapter or the first chapter with her talking about someone named Covey, like I didn't make the connection at first because she was saying there was a girl named Covey, and I'm thinking, okay, was this a friend of hers? But it ended up being her, and it just was like the imagery in that book was just so powerful. The theme of family and forgiveness was, so powerful. For me also, I think a lot of times that, all of us have a parent or parents, we come from somebody, we come from someone, some people may not have known their birth mother, or maybe they didn't really grow up with her. But for those of us that did, a lot of times you forget that your mother or even your father had a whole life before you. They had dreams before you. They had things they wanted to do. And I feel like, they really got to know their mother more after she passed away, which, that in itself was sad. I think that, she didn't feel like she could be honest with them or tell them, things when she was living. Because most children, I mean, even if their mothers are drug addicts or, or whatever, they love their moms. Like it's not a whole lot you can do to some children for them to hate their mothers. So I think that would have been something she could have died with peace, knowing that she looked her children in the eye and they knew who she was before she passed. And I did another video a couple of, weeks ago where, so now on Hulu, they have adapted the book to a television series, and I did a reaction to the first episode. And I'm always leery when, especially books that I really like, when they are adapted to a movie or a TV, because we always know the book is better, because in TV and film they're going to have to cut out stuff. A lot of times they add stuff, but I really feel like they did that book justice. The casting was spot on. The locations were spot on. The costumes were everything is very close to how I imagined it in my mind when I was reading. So I don't know if they're going to, I don't know that they need to continue it. I know they did that with Queen Sugar on, that was based on a book, and they changed it drastically and they kept it going for seasons. I feel like, we could have some closure here, and it could be like a limited series, but it is getting so much positive buzz that there are mumblings that it may become a series, which I don't know if I'll continue watching, because I've gotten the visuals I needed from, the book as I read it. So anyway, number 3, Halfway to You, by Jennifer Gold. And this book caught me by surprise. I love when I go into reading a book, first of all, that I have not seen anywhere else, that I have not seen other people talking about, that I totally don't know what to expect when reading it outside of the blurb, and this book, it reminded me of a cross between Eat, Love, Pray, and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And I know that sounds wild, because one was like a memoir and one obviously was a fictional book, but a lot of the elements in this book, Halfway to You, were very similar to both those books. So what has happened, there's this woman named Anne. She had written like this best-selling book, and they turned it into a movie, and it was just, big time in her life, right? Well, she is like, what is it, 40? Let me look at my notes real quick. I think it's 40 years later, right, that she is writing another book. I can't think, it's kind of like, what's her name? Harper Lee, when she wrote, To Kill a Mockingbird, and then she came back all these years later, with the follow-up. But in the story, Halfway to You, she wants a particular journalist to be the person to interview her, ahead of this book coming out, because now she has the whole literary world abuzz, about what is this book going to be about, where's she been, what she's been doing. And so she has this journalist come out to her secluded house, to talk about her life. And as the story goes on, she tells these stories. Oh, and the thing is, that journalist is connected to her because, the great love of Anne's life happens to be that journalist's uncle, right? So she trusts her, and she wants to, tell her story. So then we go, back to the past on this adventure when a young Anne, met this girl's uncle. I think they were in Greece or somewhere, overseas, not in the United States. And just the journeys and the way that she talked about the food, because I think she ended up, loving to cook and all that kind of stuff. Just the different, being in Italy, Greece, and, all these different places. She talked about the scenery there, which the imagery was like palpable, the food that she ate. And then in the background, there was this love story, but there were several different seasons of her life that we got to experience in this book. And, several seasons where she had found other men that she loved, but, her and the uncle, they kept coming back to each other. And then it has a little mystery element, because just like the journalist, she starts to realize, as the reader does, that, okay, there's got to be some other reason that you wanted me to do this story. I'm trying to see where this is going, right? And there is a pretty big bomb that she drops on her. And much like in The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, there's this woman interviewing Evelyn, and I immediately was thinking, like, foolishly, that the woman was maybe that interviewer's mother. And I thought the same exact thing when I was reading Halfway to You. but that's not the case. So yeah, it was just it was a big break from the mystery thrillers. It was very much, women's fiction. A very beautiful story, like I said, with palpable imagery, a love story, and just, it's everything that you would want in a book, as far as a great beginning, middle, and end. So yeah, Halfway to You by Jennifer Gold. And Halfway to You was going to be my number one book because, as I talked about in several, videos that I'd done, and even with Halfway to You, like, I gave it a 4.5 star because there were like a couple of parts where I felt like it moved a little too slow for me. But it was the highest rated book, at 4.5 stars. I hadn't gotten a 5-star book like all year until I got the ARC, the Advanced Reader's Copy of Kennedy Ryan's upcoming novel, This Could Be Us. And even though the book doesn't come out in 2024, I read it in 2023. And it was by far the top read for me of 2023. I gave it a solid 5 stars. And it's a part of a series, but not like, it's a standalone in a series, where, this woman named Soledad, she goes through a divorce. This guy named Judah, he goes through a divorce, and, they end up having a second chance, at love and at real love, because what essentially both of them had before it just really become comfortable and, not like that burning love that you read about and hear about. They experienced that with each other. But the book, it took you on such a journey because in the prologue, Judah, he had gotten a divorce, and him and his ex, they were amicable, very, very amicable. And then a couple of chapters in, after Soledad's divorce, there was this very long period before they even got together. That book was the slowest burn that I have ever read. I mean, more than like halfway through, they had even shared a first kiss, which tells you the strength of the story itself. If you are reading a book that essentially is, in the romance genre and nothing has really happened between the characters, it's like, what am I here for? But it was told so well because, Soledad was trying to get on her feet. She wanted to heal a little bit, before she took all of her hot mess into another relationship, which was admirable. And the fact that Judah was patient and allowed her to have that, made it even more of a touching story. And I just really love Kennedy Ryan's writing style and her character. It was just a story that felt very authentic. And even though it was fiction, I could imagine, that being something that happened in real life to someone, and maybe them kind of navigating it the same way. The way that she navigated everything seemed very authentic, It wasn't just a lot of fluff and a lot of hearts and puppy dog type things. There was some angst and, like I said, the slowest burn ever, but just beautiful, beautiful characters and everything. I mean, I could go on, but I can't wait for the book to actually come out in March of 2024 because I want to get a physical copy of it, and I may do a reread, so you may hear about that some more. But anyway, those are my top 5 reads of 2023. And like I said earlier, I had read a lot of books on my Kindle that I really enjoyed, none that I really wanted to share on the channel, but including the books that I read on my Kindle, because keep in mind, some of them were short stories, some of them were novellas. I think I topped out at like maybe 90 books this year. I've never read that many books in a single year. That's just crazy to me. But the thing that's really crazy is that despite reading so much, I was able to achieve quite a bit this year. I had put out a magazine. I only did it for the year. That's a lot of work. And it came out quarterly. So it was 4 issues of a physical copy and digital copy magazine for my Face of 50 group. And I also participated in NaNoWriMo, writing 60,000 words. I mean, I was on my creativity this year, like hyper focused. And as a result of the NaNoWriMo, I do have a new release coming out next year. It will be coming out in the summer. And then also, as it pertains to the channel, I did like 2 or 3 reactions this year where I compared like the book to the movie. You know, I watched the movie and then talked about the book and how they compare. I think I'm going to start doing some of those, more of those next year. And not even with stuff that is on the horizon to come out, which, you know, there's a lot of stuff. It seems like everything is based on a book these days. But there are a lot of movies that I'd watched that didn't know were based on books. But there are quite a few books that I've read, that I've seen. Like, I didn't even know they'd made a movie about it. So I think I'm going to kind of make a list, and maybe once a month or once a quarter or something, I'm going to do that on the channel. Like, talk about how they compared, you know, in all the areas. I'm also going to start doing more takeaways from books. You know, this year I started with the whole, you know, if you like this kind of book, if you like that kind of book, then this book is great for you. But I think I'm just going to, you know, find at least one, like, what was the moral or the point of this story, you know, outside of it being a fictional book that entertained and engaged. Was there an overarching point that I felt, you know, that I got from the book? I think I'm gonna start sharing more of those. Trying to find ways to make my videos more dynamic, you know, like showing book hauls or behind the scene things of me reading, or, you know, or something like that. And I'm just curious, I have a question for you guys. What is a good time length for the average video that you watch? Are you looking for something that's like, you know, 10 minutes or under? Are you looking for something that's 10 to 30 minutes, 15 minutes? Like, what is a good range? Because sometimes I think, oh, this video is too long, and I'll cut out most of it. And, you know, because I'm thinking people want something quicker. I guess I'm thinking about, like, you know, TikTok or Instagram, or places where you get these 1-minute reels, and, you know, people want information and they don't necessarily want to hear you rambling like I'm doing now. But let me know in the comments, like, what is the longest that you would watch a YouTube video talking about books, you know? So yeah, drop that in the comments. I think that'll be helpful for me to know as I move forward on the channel, so that I'm not, like, you know, doing too much or too little. So anyway, again, I'm just shocked that we have come to the end of another year. And again, I want to thank everyone that has subscribed, that has liked, that has commented, and really made me feel like what I'm doing here on this channel is worthwhile. Because there was a time I was like, okay, you're spending all this time or whatever, you know, doing this channel, and nobody's really, like, it's not really resonating with anyone. And this year has been such a turnaround for me, and I want that to continue to happen. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So make sure that you like this video. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and share the video with someone you think may enjoy the content that I provide. I am wishing each and every one of you a very, very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, however you celebrate, and whoever you celebrate with. I just hope that you have a wonderful and safe holiday season. And I will see you guys in January 10th to be exact, is when my next video will actually appear on the channel. So take care. Bye.